guys, welcome back to my channel. I just completed the Crescent City series, which is a trilogy at the moment. I think there are going to be more books though, and I have thoughts, you guys. Let's dive right into it. These books are heavy. Oh my gosh, they're so heavy. I think each of these books are about like over 800 pages. So I am perplexed even carrying all of this. Anyway, we will start with what this book is about. Is it worth it? What's going on? So this, if you've not seen my channel before, I have talked about these books quite a few times, and I just completed the third book in this series, which is House of Flame and Shadow. And I don't know, I just had so many things that I wanted to talk about, and so I'm just gonna go into it. So if you don't know what this book is about, this is Sarah J Maas's adult fantasy book, and it has 3 in this series at the moment. The book kind of feels like there is some closure. I'm gonna put a point here in the video when I'm gonna start spoilers, so until then all of you can watch. After spoilers, make sure to go ahead and watch it after you're done reading the series. So the plot is about Bryce Quinlan. She is a half fae, half human, and this is set in a modern day fantasy. So basically this is urban fantasy. And I don't know, I mean, I have read quite a bit urban fantasies before, but this one actually caught me a little bit off guard, because I thought like a modern day fantasy would still have like fantasy elements that may not completely overshadow the modern day elements. But then I kind of felt like there was a lot of modern day elements that happened in this book that kind of made me feel like I had to take some time to agree that this is how it's going to be. So for example, these are all like people or creatures that are 300 years old, 100 years old. You have a fallen angel, you have half fae, you have werewolves, you have full fae, you have so many different kinds of worlds here that are involved, and they all talk like college kids, which is kind of weird. And they have mobiles, so they communicate on mobiles, they go to school, they go to college, they like basically live in the modern day world. So everything that we do in the modern day world, they do it as well. Maybe it'll be intriguing for a few of you, where this kind of mix of fantasy and modern day is kind of intriguing. But for me it was a little bit difficult to follow, because in my mind fantasy is always set in a fantasy world. Maybe urban fantasy has modern elements to it, but this was like a little bit too much for me. So that was one thing about this book. So basically, I was getting back to the plot. We talk about, or we follow Bryce Quinlan, who is halfway, half human, and she's just an average, I think around 20 whatever year old, and she is into partying, and she works in a club, and she's just like an average girl who is apparently very pretty, and she has long reddish locks and whatnot. I think that is her in the cover. And what happens in the story is that her best friend Danica, who she lives with as well, suddenly after a day of partying, when she's super high, she goes back to her apartment, and her friend and her friend's friends, so they're all part of like this werewolf gang of cops sort of, and she finds them bloodied and murdered on the floor. And she's so high that she doesn't even know what is happening. She freaks out, and she collapses. And then this goes up into police investigation. We meet up with Hunt, who is our fallen angel, but he's also the cop of this place, and he teams up with Bryce to find out what is this murder about, what's going on behind these murders. And then we obviously end up realizing there's more to it than what meets the eye. There's so much happening around, and so we then start understanding all of these characters and meeting a lot of new characters and getting into this game. So basically all the 3 books are a continuation of this plot, and there is a lot of things that happen in between. We meet a lot of characters, a lot of worlds. There are different houses, so all of these are different worlds. So you've got House of Earth and Blood, and then House of Sky and Breath, and House of Flame and Shadow. So it is all about what was Danica trying to investigate that led to her getting herself murdered and killed. And so that's the plot line of these books. So I actually enjoyed the books. I'll put it out there. I actually thought that it was very intriguing, so much of fun, and I was trying to get to into this whole modern fantasy, and the book's really big, so I took a lot of time savoring it, and I'm like understanding each of these characters and getting to know each of them. So there's a lot of character development with a lot of these characters, and so it was brilliant, and I love that aspect of the books. And also it felt like if you're reading something and it's like, for example, in the first book, House of Earth and Blood, the starting was so gripping. So when you see that Danica gets murdered, and then you go through the lens of Bryce during that time, and Hunt comes to investigate, and all of these things happen, it was so intriguing, and I was so into the book. And then like halfway through the book, it was just a lot of word dump and world building and all of that happening, and I kind of was like, flipping through quickly because I just wanted to get to know what happens. And then towards the end of the book, and I find that to be actually a common thing in all of the 3 books. So it starts off really good, and then in between you have like at least about 400 odd pages which you're just like flipping through and like trying to get through the story. And then the last 300 pages again picks up again, and then in the ending it's just like boom, you like thrown this twist that you never would have expected at all. So the first book and the second book was in that same aspect. The third book though, which I just finished, I mean, the starting was really good because the second book ended with a cliffhanger, and I was so excited about this. And it started off great, and in the middle, as usual, there were quite a bit of like a bunch of pages that were just like word building, introduction of new characters, and all of that was happening. And then like towards around, I think, the 300 page mark to like a 600 page mark, it was amazing. I mean, so many things happened, and you learn a lot, and then you're like totally like into the book. And then again it was so slow, and to be honest, I was a little disappointed with the ending because I did not expect it to end the way it did. I would recommend this series to readers who have like read a lot of books, definitely not beginners, definitely not like just out of beginners as well. So if you're like a decent intermediate reader who can handle the depth, then I would highly recommend this book. Also, it is high fantasy set in modern days, so the stakes are high. So definitely you're going to be feeling a lot of overwhelming situations. There'll be so much happening, so many new characters, so much word building and world building, and the ambience is something that you will not be able to relate to. So it's really complicated as a series. So I would highly recommend this to definitely fast readers, definitely intermediate and above, but not below that. If you're actually trying to read something Sarah J. Maas, then the best series to start with would be the Akotar series, because that is very lightweight and it gets over really fast. The books, that is, it has a decent level of depth, but it's easy to understand the characters and the world that Sarah J. Maas is building. Plus this a plus point if you read that series before this series, because kind of all the worlds interject, combine at some point. And the Throne of Glass series is again something that you can read maybe after the Akotar series, but that's possibly only because it's more longer, because the Akotar series has about 5 or 6 books and the Throne of Glass has about 8 or 9, and the last book is like really huge as well. But this series is definitely not for beginners. It will be too much, and also be warned that there are a lot of smut in this book and usage of vocabulary that's only for adult readers. So make sure you're aware of all that before you pick up these books. So I'm gonna put a pause here because I want to talk about these books, and it's going to have spoilers. So if you've not read the book, please go back and read the book and come back, and we'll get right into the details of these books. Right, so first of all, There are way too many characters. I mean, it is so many characters that I think even Sarah J. Maas forgot about half of these characters. Like from the first book, she like introduces new characters every 5 chapters or every 10 chapters, and by the time you like go halfway through the book itself, you've forgotten half the characters that were introduced. And then when you're somewhere in the third book, you're sitting and thinking, I've heard of these characters before, and I can't seem to recollect where I was looking at this character. And also, there are characters I think she herself forgot about, because by the end of the book, I was wondering what happened to a few of them. They don't seem to have had a plot ending at all. Or is it like build up for like a next book? I don't know. But there were quite a few instances where suddenly some of the characters just went missing, and I thought that was really, really annoying. And another thing that was really annoying was the fact that the ending of this book, though, you guys, if you have read this book, which I think you possibly would have if you're in the spoiler section, then what was that ending? It was so disappointing. I mean, I knew it was gonna happen, but then it just happened like quickly and in like less than 100 pages, and then there's this whole set up for the closure happening in the last 100 pages, and I'm like, wait, that's it, the war is done, the Astri are defeated. I didn't even realize that happening, because it feels like there was so much of build up to reach this point that you would expect an epic finale of sorts, and nothing like that happened, because basically the Astri just get defeated and they just die. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I knew that was gonna happen, but how did it happen so quickly? I actually went back a few pages to see what exactly happened and who killed the Astri, because it just felt like it was so quick and there was no like remorse. And another thing that I really thought was annoying was there is a crossover with a a Kotar series over here, and you meet a couple of the Akotar characters, actually more than a couple. Nesta being the main character that you meet here, which I thought was brilliant, because crossovers like that are so engaging, and which is essentially the cliffhanger in the last book. So I was so excited to like get into seeing what happens, but then you don't really meet any of the other characters. I would have loved to see how Bryce would have met like Fere or Rysand or somebody else, but she meets only Nesta and I think Azriel, and that's pretty much it. And Nesta had such a big role, and I actually think Nesta was so much stronger and so much better in this book than Bryce, because Bryce did nothing except complain. I mean, I actually like Bryce than Sarah J. Maas's other characters. I know it's probably an unpopular opinion because a lot of people like Selena from Throne of Glass, but I didn't like her at all, because she was actually an assassin, but she never like really did anything as an assassin. She kept like whining, but at least Bryce was not whining half the time. I kind of liked Bryce better. I like Fairy the most though, because I think she's more like level-headed. But Bryce, I feel she's half fae, half human. She had a lot of powers, and she did use most of her powers. It's not like she didn't know what she was capable of, and so that part of it I really, really liked. Another thing that kind of actually put me off throughout the books or the series was Bryce's like vocabulary. I mean, she has these like words they repeatedly uses throughout the books. At some point it's like okay, but at some points it's just like, really, this is not the point, or this is not the moment for you to be using those words. She kind of acts kind of immature in like really intense situations, which kind of puts me off. And I think that is also related to the fact that when I was saying that all of these people talk like college kids, and it's kind of weird because you expect them to be more mature than an average college kid, considering that they're like fae and mythological creatures and angels, and they've gone through shit, right? But that's not what happens, and that kind of like was annoying as well. Another thing that I was kind of actually irritated about was the amount of smut in the book. I mean, if they were well placed, put in situations where that they would have made sense, then I would have actually appreciated it, which did happen in like at the start of the book in a few scenarios. But towards the end of the book, there's like a war happening with the Asteri, and all Bryce and Hunt can think about is smut, and so does Rune and Lydia. And I am like, seriously, this is not the time for it. And that kind of put me off as well. I mean, why were those scenes even there at the end of the book? I mean, shouldn't they be like fighting the Asteri and figuring out how to kill them and things like that, instead of just like next door smutting away? And gosh, I feel like I have so many qualms than how many times I actually enjoyed the book, because I feel like that is what I'm ranting about constantly here. Another thing that I also wanted to talk about was all of these new characters that never actually had a storyline. So we meet some new characters, and then like Satya, and we meet a lot of existing characters who just make an appearance, like Declan and Flynn, and we don't really know what they do. It just felt like Sarah J. Maas just put them there when you need something and then took them out when she doesn't need anything from them. So if you want a hacker, then just bring Declan in, hack something, and just like leave the chapter, and that's it. He's like missing for then our next 400 pages. So I did not like that as well. It just felt very forced, and not necessarily fluid. I think that was also really annoying about the book. Everything that I liked about the book, I think I really need to talk about that. First of all, the plot was really good. I mean, despite the fact that I did talk about a lot of qualms, these books are, like I said, over 800 pages, and I actually savored each of these books without, DNFing or anything. So I actually finished them, even though I might have flipped a few pages in between, but I still wanted to continue the series and finish the book, which in itself is like a big thing, because then it means that it's really engaging and you want to know what happens. So I think that is a big plus. And those cliffhangers in the first two books, I have to give it to Mass. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, you would never expect those happening in the first two books. Third book, though, not as much. In between, the storyline around the background of the Asteri and Lydia, all that was like really, really good. And I loved Lydia's character as well in this book, and Lydia and Rune as like the main couple was like amazing. I just wish they had more like screen presence. They did, but then I wish they had like more, because that was more fun. And then at one point, I actually didn't even remember that Bryce was married to Hunt, and until they like told that in the book, because it's just so forgivable. I mean, or forgettable, because they're not like really behaving like that, and then suddenly they're like, oh, that's my husband, and I'm like, oh, that's right, they got married in the second book. So there are a lot of elements like that I felt were very missable, though they were like key moments, and they were not given as much attention as they should have. Otherwise, that feel would have lingered on to the third book, which wasn't there. So overall, I enjoyed the series. I think you should also try it. Let me know what you think. I would love to know comments of people who've already read this book, so we would have like a discussion in the chat section, in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in another video. Bye.